Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. I came across this. Came out in April, but I've only just seen it. I think it's quite interesting from several viewpoints. And it's a story which the first person on Mars should be a woman. And I thought, why? But you know what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen, regardless. The first woman is going to be, or the first person on Mars will be a woman. Pure and simple. That's how it's just going to be. And the reason why it's going to happen is because NASA has become feminized. That's the reason why it has lost its competitive edge massively. Some people will say that's a little bit silly from the point of view of why we haven't gone to the moon again, of why many projects are not being pushed and funded, because it's been feminized. The feminist movement have got into NASA, and the real competitive of the 60s, when they got the ships to the moon and on the moon, that real massive get up and go is no longer there. We'll read through this and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So let's go. A senior NASA engineer has said the first person to step on Mars should be a woman. Period. There's no discussion. Should be a woman. Now, I don't really have any problem with that, but why does it have to be a woman? It should be the best person who's in command, and if it's a woman who's in command, she should step on there. If it's a man who's in command, he should step on there. Plain and simple. The best person, the first person to go on there should be the senior person. Plain and simple. But this is the problem that we have today with the feminist movement coming to NASA, and it's become useless. Alison McIntyre, who puts prospective space travelers through their paces at Johnson Space Center in Houston, noted that all 12 people who have walked on the moon were men, and they were great men. They were solid men of character. Okay, and they should be celebrated for being brave enough to go there. Okay. She believes women should be at the forefront if and when the agency sends its first human missions to Mars. What? It's a bit of gender bias. I thought people were trying to say, let's have 6 men, 6 women. Let's have the best people going to Mars. Okay. And the best person step onto Mars. If you can do it all together, it would be great. But someone will put that foot there quicker than anybody else. Okay. Radio 5 Live has been behind the scenes at NASA in Texas and Florida. They have been meeting women at the forefront of the 21st century space race. Right. So if they're at the forefront, if all these women are in NASA, supposedly pushing it forward, it's got nowhere. It's absolutely got very little. We're still sending robots to Mars. NASA should have been at the forefront of sending human beings to Mars. But now they have an outside industry is doing that. In Elon Musk, maybe one day with Bezos, Amazon chief. It's men with big balls that are going to do this, not a feminized NASA. Men with big balls. It's been more than half a century since Russia sent the first woman into space, and 40 years since NASA selected its first female astronaut. But there still hasn't been a woman on the moon, and women remain underrepresented in space and engineering industries on both sides of the Atlantic. Nothing's stopping them from going into this industry. It's entirely up to these women whether they want to do this or not. Okay. I read that in Oxford, the university gave women 15 minutes more. Well, it was actually, I think everybody got 15 minutes extra, but it found that women didn't finish their papers. So they decided to give women 15 minutes extra. But it was then deemed that was also given to the men as well. So they got 15 minutes extra to do the exams. Why is it that we seem to always today give women extra favours? You know, when you get strong, mentally agile women, they don't want these favours. They want to be the same as everybody else. They don't want favours given to them. They don't want free tampons. Okay, when women are going to football matches in the UK, they're expecting to get free tampons. The excuse that they give is that there are girls who are given free tickets, who are from a poorer part, whatever it is, of town, where, say it's Liverpool, and some, underprivileged girls and boys are given tickets, and when they go to watch the football match, if they need the facilities of a tampon, they can't afford to pay because the machines charge £2 for the tampon. And the reason why they do that is because one half of the population uses it, the other half doesn't. So why should the other half that doesn't use it pay for those tampons that the other half use? So they have to pay £2. There was this stupid campaign in Scotland where they were demanding that these football clubs give free tampons, not just to these girls, but to every woman who comes. So every woman that walks into the women's toilet will have a tampon for free. But who's going to pay for these? Because these things are not free; they cost money to make. Someone's had to make that. Man and a woman have had to make those tampons. So why should you get them for free? Some of these women, feminist bitches, complain about the 5%. I think it's 5%. They call it pink tax. They want that to be removed. They keep on complaining about women's toiletries are more expensive than men. Yet every single time when you bring the two products together, usually the reason why the women's products are more expensive is because they have far more ingredients than the men's do, and they have more glitzier packaging than the men's do. Okay, they have much more expensive perfumes in some of the products. Many of these things can be explained on why a female product is more expensive than the men's. And as some people pointed out, no one is stopping you from using a men's razor. Nobody's stopping you from using a men's razor. Okay, but they complain that some women's razors are more expensive than the men's razors. One, they're far bigger. Two, they're made specifically not to be apparently as sharp because of women's supposedly sensitive skin, and they have garish colours that have to be, pink and turquoise and all sorts of nonsense colours, special colours, and I think they're also a lot bigger as well. So there's more design that goes into the packaging as well. So these things can be explained. It's not women are not being discriminated against. It's just because your product is more expensive to make. And if it is, go and buy men's razors. Go and buy men's aftershave, not aftershave, men's shaving foam to shave your armpits or your legs. You don't have, it's simple. Just use a men's one. You'll be paid the same. So there we go. So we're getting back to, I've lost my way of it. Alison has an incredible view from our office on the floor of this space vehicle mock-up facility of the space vehicle mock-up facility at Johnson Space Center in Houston. This huge building is packed with full versions of International Space Station modules and other spacecraft where astronauts train before going into space. So this is the mock-up. This is the problem with NASA, and I think this is the problem. It's feminized to women. It's lost its competitive edge. It's lost its vision. It's making a module that looks like something that was built in 1968 and has not moved forward. Yet you look at Musk, he's come up with a much more futuristic looking spacecraft, which has got everybody's imagination. Yes, it's going to go through a few little design changes before the final product comes through. Bezos's spaceship is looking really, really good now. It's got to the edge of space. So, and yet this is something that's come out of the 1960s. This is the problem with NASA. Alison is in charge of facility. I love it. They're going to have to take me out of here kicking and screaming when it's time for me to do something else. What? Have a kid? She's been with NASA for nearly 30 years. Okay, maybe she's got whatever, and has seen huge changes in that time. Now listen to this. My center director is a woman. My former division center was a woman. We have female astronauts, but we haven't put a woman on the moon yet. I think the first person on Mars should be a woman. So this NASA astronaut, Karen Nyberg, has already spent more than 6 months in space aboard the International Space Station. When I was selected as an astronaut in 2000, I thought that might be a realistic possibility that we would be the next to go to the moon. So it's unfortunate we weren't, because it's been feminized and it's lost its edge. I keep saying that until it sinks in. On the prospect of women taking a walk on the moon, Karen said it will happen. There's a lot of politics, absolutely correct. Money is needed. So it's really hard to see it not go faster. Eventually it will happen. President Trump has spoken of his desire to see American astronauts return to the moon, a shift from Obama's focus on Mars. So it says here, listen to this. This woman, I can't pronounce her name, listen to this, is developing Boeing's Skyliner spacecraft to take astronauts. So the way they're talking, as if she's the one that's designing and producing this spacecraft. Okay. But let's continue. Again, I can't pronounce the bloody name. Is among those hoping to follow in Karen's footsteps, having spent most of her life dreaming of becoming an astronaut. She's currently working at Johnson, where her employer, Boeing, is developing a spacecraft for NASA to carry astronauts to the International Space Station. So she's helping out. She's helping with the design. She's not building it herself. The implication is as if she's building it herself. Fucking hell. There have been times during my studies when I've been the only female engineer amongst 70 men. So, what's the problem? Is that any... You got through. The others didn't. So, whose fault is that? That didn't strike me until I had to use... Right. That didn't strike me until I had to use the bathroom, and there was a long line in the men's restroom, and I was the only one using the women's. It would be awesome and inspiring to have a woman take the first steps on Mars, and I don't mind volunteering for that. Flight director Emily Nielsen agrees that the failure to put a woman on Mars is as much as a reflection of changing priorities within the space industry. We haven't seen anyone on the moon for a while. From Emily's desk in the mission control room at Johnson, she's responsible for keeping astronauts safe aboard the International Space Station. We've devoted a lot of time to building our knowledge base about flying in space in general. When we last went to the moon, our ability to stay there for any length of time was really limited. But they did it. They stayed up there. They produced oxygen. Okay. And they stayed up there and they bounced around on the moon for ages and they did their business and they came back. Extraordinary. These were brave men. We needed to take some time to make more robust technologies. Yeah, bloody 50 bloody years to be able to build life support systems and spacesuits and systems that would allow you to stay in for a while. Really. Russian President Vladimir Putin has talked recently about Russian missions to the moon and Mars. But this is very, very... Listen to this, people. But Emily isn't excited about the prospect of a new space race. It was the space race that was able to produce two nations competing against each other to get a man to the moon. America was determined to get somebody to the moon. And they did it because of the competitiveness between these two nations. Because there's no competition, NASA has become feminized and does everything extremely slowly. There is no vigor, there is no competitiveness, there's no real excitement or drive. That's the problem. Let's continue. You would need inflated budgets, but if your goal is to beat somebody, what do you do when you achieve that goal? You move on to the next goal. You move, if it was to the moon, to go back to the moon, you then move, right, let's start going to Mars. When you've gone to Mars, then you start going further and further to look for other planets that perhaps we could occupy. The whole point is, Elon Musk is absolutely right. We need to be looking at populating the moon, populating Mars, okay? Because if something was to happen to the Earth, or there was a problem on Earth, at least we'd have a base or bases that we could take people off and move and go to these other places. We should be looking to explore other planets. Okay, we need to start from that. And if we built small colonies on Mars and on the moon, okay, we could start looking at expanding further out into space. Okay, easing. And if we've got people living on the moon, living on Mars, underground, perhaps to start with, we could take people off this planet, okay, and ease up the population from this planet over time. We should be looking at building more international type space stations up in space to accommodate ordinary people, so they can live in space and eat in space. Go do whatever they need to do in space. But the problem is, no imagination. None. Let me say that. So here we have the goal should be something sustainable, something that means something for further humanity, for furthering humanity's reach in the universe. But that's the point. Competitive is, to be competitive, to get to the moon, to get to Mars, will help us to push forward. That is the goal, to go further from where we are at the moment. That is the next for us to achieve. But we don't want to be doing it 2,000 or 3,000 years from now. We need to start doing it now. Russian President Vladimir Putin has talked recently about Russia's mission to the moon and Mars. But Emily, we've kind of grown past that. Yeah, fat and old. That's how you've gone past it. You're just too old. You need to trim back and start getting more energy again, so that we get these people to the moon, get these people to Mars. We don't need to compete like we were doing back then. But if we didn't compete back then, nobody would have got to the moon. Nobody. We would probably be looking to go to the moon now. Okay. There is no energy and vigor in the same way as there was. So, again, Massa is a project manager in NASA's Veggie Lab at Kennedy Space Center. She is experimenting and testing different methods of growing food so that plants can grow in space. As humans go further in space, where have they gone further? They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't gone anywhere. We're still on this planet. We haven't done anything to achieve that. The more important it becomes that we can grow food rather than take everything with them. They also use an artificial soil which is designed to replicate the surface of Mars. This woman said has often found herself to be the only. Oh, Jesus Christ! This is the thing that I'm really, really sick and tired of hearing about. That she's the only woman in the room. Whose fault is that? It's for you women to get off your asses and educate yourself to be able to go into these places. Okay? Nobody's stopping you. You're the only woman in the room, which means that you've achieved something. Okay? So maybe other women could get off their backsides if that's what they want to do. If they don't want to do that, they don't want to do it. God almighty. She said that if she has suffered discrimination during her career, she might not have noticed because she's often off in my own little scientific world. So she's not sure if she's had suffered discrimination during her career. She might not have noticed. Why not just say, I didn't? I mean, are you that childish, really, to not know whether you had discrimination or not? Because if you didn't, just say, no, I didn't have any discrimination. My career has been brilliant. I've enjoyed it. Which is what you should bloody be saying. You know, that's what you have to say. Why does it have to always be complicated? Especially when it comes to women and the issues. It's getting very tiring. It's getting very tiring. You know, if women want to go into this world, they have the ability to do it today. Nobody is stopping them. If anything, they are stopping themselves. Okay, you're there in America, one of the greatest countries in the world, and you are there as a female working in the Space Center. Okay, there are other women there working in the Space Center, and what's the problem? I don't understand. There will come a time when the Moon, the Mars, hopefully, will have a population of both men and women and children living and working on this planet. Okay. All I hear all the time is this snide little sort of bits of animosity. I'm not interested. I don't care. Okay. She's experimenting on different methods. Oh yeah, hasn't noticed in it because she's often off in her own little scientific world. And this woman, I don't know what, something to do with Misty, said she was nerdy at school. Now she's working on sending astronauts back to space from Kennedy Space Center. So this Misty person, oh Jesus, not going to bother pronouncing that. Role with NASA involves working. Oh, okay. Working with Elon Musk's SpaceX, who, like Boeing, are aiming to send astronauts to the International Space Station, International Space ISS. She says the excitement around their recent launches reminds her of the days of the Space Shuttle, the iconic spacecraft which flew 135 missions between 1981 and 2011. Misty said, when I was a little girl, I was always into space, always into maths. I liked Star Trek, The Next Generation. I was a total nerd like that in high school. When Misty took her first engineering job, she was the only woman amongst 200 men. Blah, blah, bloody blah. I found I had to work a lot hard. Yeah, here we go. I found I had to work a lot harder than my colleagues to make sure I always had the answer, that I wasn't ever behind. I would love to see a female administrator. That's a huge job. And all this fucking bollocks. If we get a female administrator in NASA, the situation is going to slow down even more. And that would be, why would that be great for NASA? NASA is already a bloated mass of shit. Okay? It's already a load of shit. It's not doing its job. Okay? It should have had people on at least a base on Mars. Sorry, on the moon. At least a base on the moon. Nothing. Nothing. But if a woman does set foot on Mars or the moon in the coming years, it won't be misty. I get motion sickness really bad. I will be the person to help you get there, but I won't be going myself. Who gives a fuck? And this is obviously Mars ship test flights next year. Really? That's from Mr. Elon. So the point is, after going through all this is the thing. This section here, where the competitiveness of NASA has been lost. And it will take years and years and years for NASA to truly become anything like it was in the 60s. Maybe not. Maybe it will just slowly do its nonsense and allow private industry, and all it will do is just hand out the money to these companies to do the work that it should be doing. Okay. But anyway, I've said my 2 pence worth. I just thought I just needed to have something to say about this, because I'm just getting tired of all this feminist shit that keeps on purveying in today's society. Just look at this old fucking hit the wall big time. Holy sweet Christmas. Anyway, I've said my say. I'm going to bed. Good night.